What if struggling isn't a sign you're failing? What if it's a signal you're resisting? You wake up exhausted. You move through the day holding on so tightly to everything. Your thoughts, your expectations, your fear of what might go wrong. There's this quiet tension beneath your skin, a buzzing that never stops. Maybe you call it stress. Maybe you call it life. But deep down, you know something's off. Something isn't flowing. You're not flowing. Want to stop struggling? Try letting go. Not as a metaphor, not as a motivational quote, as a vibrational shift, as an invitation to stop gripping the illusion of control and start breathing into what actually is. Because here's the truth that most people avoid. Surrender isn't weakness. It's not giving up. It's not failure. Surrender is a realignment, a release of the survival script that says, I have to figure this all out or everything will collapse. That script, it's burning you out. It's keeping you locked in patterns that feel like protection, but are actually the prison. You weren't born to fight your own life. You weren't born to carry every burden until your soul bends under the weight. And yet, here you are, tired, stretched, wondering why no amount of pushing, planning, or spiritual discipline seems to bring peace. Could it be that the pain isn't coming from what's happening, but from how tightly you're holding on? Let's say this out loud, together, right now. Surrender is not defeat. It's a doorway. It's the moment your body stops bracing for impact. The second your heart stops racing against time. The breath you didn't even realize you were holding, finally released. This video isn't about passive acceptance. It's about a different kind of power, a quieter one. The power that rises when you stop pretending to be in control of the universe and start learning how to live inside it. In the next section, we're going to explore the hidden cost of control, the way it drains your energy, distorts your choices, and convinces your nervous system that struggle is normal. We'll dive into what Bruce Lipton teaches about cellular stress, how the ego confuses safety with control, and why unresolved memories in your body keep replaying suffering like a broken loop. Stay with me. What comes next might explain why you felt so tired for so long, the invisible weight of control. There's a kind of exhaustion that sleep can't fix. It settles in your chest, lingers in your jaw, coils itself around your spine like an invisible tension you can't quite name. It's not from what you're doing. It's from how much you're holding on to everything, to everyone, to every imagined outcome you've convinced yourself you have to manage. That's not living. That's bracing. You may think you're being strong, focused, responsible, but what if that constant need to control is the very thing draining your energy? What if it's not life that's heavy, but the way you're gripping it? Let me explain. Bruce Lipton, a pioneer in the field of epigenetics, teaches us that stress isn't just a feeling, it's a biological signal, one that tells your cells to shut down healing, creativity, and connection, and shift into survival. Every time your mind says, I can't relax until I'm sure it'll all work out, your body hears, we're in danger, and it responds accordingly. Tension, cortisol, vigilance. This isn't just happening in your thoughts, it's happening in your tissues. The vibration of control, though disguised as competence, is actually rooted in fear. The fear of not being enough, of losing something, of being caught off guard by pain. So the ego builds its fortress, it micromanages, it worries. It scans the horizon, and it calls that hypervigilance being prepared. But here's the truth, the fortress isn't protecting you, it's isolating you. Pause for a moment, breathe. Feel where your body is holding tension right now, your neck, your stomach, your shoulders. That's not just physical, that's emotional memory crystallized in form. And the longer we carry that tension, the more normal it begins to feel. Many people confuse this with personality. I'm just anxious. I'm just a planner. I like control. But look deeper. Underneath that identity, there's usually an old imprint, A moment, maybe many, when life felt chaotic. And no one held you, so you decided to hold everything yourself. And yet, that grip has a price. Let me give you an image. Imagine clenching your fist tightly for hours. Eventually, your hand goes numb. That's what happens vibrationally when you live in control mode. You lose sensitivity, you lose softness, you lose flow. Control narrows your field. It keeps you from noticing the intuitive signals your body is whispering. It's like driving with the brakes half pressed and wondering why you're not getting anywhere. You've seen it before, you just didn't know how to read it. The headaches, the gut tension, the emotional numbness, the restless sleep, all of these are signals, not of failure, but of misalignment. Now, here's the connection you may have never made. Your attachment to control is deeply tied to unresolved emotional memory. Sometimes it's not that you're afraid of what will happen. You're afraid of feeling what you've already felt and never processed. Now together, we're going to gently dismantle one of the biggest misconceptions in the spiritual path. The belief that strength means pushing through no matter what. We'll explore how the very effort to be strong can block the flow you're trying so hard to find, and why surrender isn't giving up, but giving space. This might shift the way you see action, resistance, and your own energy field forever. The myth of spiritual strength. Why forcing blocks the flow? There's a phrase that echoes through spiritual communities. Stay strong. It's meant to uplift, to empower. But too often, it becomes a cage, because somewhere along the path, many began to confuse spiritual strength with constant effort, as if awakening requires grinding through resistance until you transcend. But what if the real path is softer than that? We live in a world obsessed with achievement, and that energy seeps into the spiritual journey too. People meditate with intensity, they visualize harder, they try to manifest faster, and they don't even notice that they're doing all of it from the same place of contraction they're trying to heal. It's the same performance, just with a spiritual costume. Let me give you an example. Imagine someone trying to manifest a relationship. They do everything right, vision boards, affirmations, gratitude journaling, but every action is laced with fear. Fear of being alone, fear of time running out. That's not alignment. That's desperation wrapped in ritual. Joe Dispenza teaches that coherent manifestation happens when thought, emotion, and energy are in harmony, not when you force the universe to bend to your timeline. When action comes from fear, even if it looks like devotion, it vibrates dissonance into the field. And the field doesn't respond to what you want. It responds to what you are. Pause now and breathe. Gently. Feel into this question. Are you doing or are you pushing? Because there's a difference between inspired action and compulsive control. Inspired action feels fluid, expansive. It arises from clarity. But compulsive control feels tight, anxious, urgent. It arises from scarcity, the subtle panic that says, if I don't do this now, I'll lose everything. And that fear activates a loop. The more you push, the more blocked things feel. The more blocked they feel, the more you push, until life becomes a spiritual version of burnout. But what if the most powerful truth was hiding where you never thought to look? Maybe it's not about doing more. Maybe it's about doing differently. Maybe the universe isn't withholding anything. It's just waiting for your energy to match what you're asking for, and that match doesn't happen in noise. It happens in stillness. Let me offer you something practical. The next time you find yourself striving spiritually, whether it's in meditation, prayer, visualization, pause. Ask yourself, is this coming from trust or tension? That one question can reveal everything. We're conditioned to believe that letting go is giving up, that surrender is weak, that stillness is passivity. But surrender is not the absence of movement. It's the alignment of movement with truth. And that's where your power lives, In the next section, we're going to shift our lens inward and examine what actually happens energetically when you let go. We'll explore the neuroscience of surrender, how your nervous system reprograms when you release resistance, and why synchronicity often follows silence. This part isn't just theory, it's cellular, and it may change how you approach everything from now on. What happens energetically when you let go? Something profound begins to happen in your body the moment you stop resisting. Not days later, not after years of healing, instantly. The shift is subtle, almost invisible at first, like the way a tight muscle releases when it's finally given permission to soften. That's the power of energetic surrender. It doesn't just calm the mind, it reconfigures the entire system. Neuroscience shows that when you let go, truly let go, your brain transitions from high beta stress patterns into slower, more harmonious alpha waves. This isn't just relaxation, it's the opening of the intuitive field. Alpha waves signal a state of receptivity, creativity, and coherence. Your thoughts become less chaotic, your emotions less rigid. You become more available to the present, not because you forced it, but because you stopped gripping what isn't here. And with that softening, something else begins to shift. Your nervous system reclaims balance. The parasympathetic branch, the part responsible for healing, digestion, and deep peace, comes back online. It's as if your body says, finally, I can stop bracing. This isn't just poetic, it's physiological. Blood pressure lowers, breathing deepens, muscles relax, hormones recalibrate. You might not see it right away, but you will feel it. A quietness. A sense of being held by something larger than your own effort. There are people who have spent years in therapy, in coaching, in spiritual programs, and they report that the moment they stopped trying to fix themselves is when something finally shifted. One woman described it as losing the war I didn't know I was fighting. She stopped searching, stopped forcing, stopped pretending she knew what healing should look like, and within weeks, relationships began to transform, her sleep returned, synchronicities reappeared. Here's the pattern. The moment you loosen your grip, life starts to respond, subtly at first. A missed opportunity circles back, a conflict softens, a forgotten dream resurfaces. These aren't coincidences, they're signals. What some call luck, others know as vibrational alignment. This is what I call the silent synchronicity, the way life flows toward openness and away from resistance. You don't need to control every outcome to be safe. You don't need to predict every detail to be loved. And you certainly don't need to push through the pain to prove your worth. There is power in the pause, in the release, in the knowing that energy flows where trust is allowed to live. Next, we'll explore why letting go often feels so unsafe, and why that has nothing to do with weakness and everything to do with the way the ego has learned to survive. You'll understand how ancient fears shape modern reactions, how the brain mistakes surrender for danger, and why it's so hard to release what we never consciously chose to carry. The ego's last stand. Why letting go feels unsafe. Letting go sounds beautiful in theory, peaceful, liberating. But when you actually try to do it, when you really face the moment of release, something inside tightens, your chest constricts, doubt creeps in, the mind races to all the things that could go wrong, and you ask yourself, why is this so hard? Because to the ego, surrender doesn't feel like healing, it feels like death. This reaction isn't weakness, it's wiring. The oldest part of your brain, the reptilian brain, is designed to keep you alive, and its language is safety through control. Anything unknown, unplanned, or uncertain is marked as threat. So when you try to surrender, your nervous system can go into alert. You're not in danger, but your body remembers a time when letting go felt unsafe. Let me give you an example. Imagine a child growing up in a chaotic home. They learn early on that unpredictability equals pain. So what do? They become hyper-aware. They start controlling what they can, their reactions, their emotions, even their breath. Fast forward to adulthood, and every time life gets uncertain, their body says, brace, tighten, don't let go. Even if your story is different, the imprint is similar. Trauma teaches the body that control equals survival. So the ego builds what feels like safety, routines, beliefs, attachments, and calls it protection. But often, it's just a familiar cage. Edgar Cayce, the renowned mystic, spoke of souls trapped in terrestrial patterns, repeating cycles not because they must, but because they forget how to exit them. And those cycles aren't just metaphysical. They live in the nervous system, in the way you flinch at closeness, or sabotage peace, or push away ease because it feels foreign. Pause for a moment. Breathe. Let this land gently. If letting go feels threatening, it's not because something is wrong with you. It's because something in you still remembers what it felt like to be out of control and unprotected. That memory shaped a pattern, and that pattern built a home in your energy. But here's the rupture in the myth. You're not that child anymore. You're not in that past moment, and you don't have to obey a fear that was born in another time. There's a saying I want you to hold close. If I let go, everything will fall apart. But what if the opposite is true? What if things only come together when you stop holding them in place? True peace begins not when you fix everything around you, but when the ego finally steps down from the throne, and in its place rises something quieter, steadier, truer, the part of you that doesn't need to fight to exist, that knows how to receive, that remembers flow. In the next chapter, we're going to translate this inner knowing into practice. I'll walk you through a 3-step process for energetic surrender, one that isn't about forcing transformation, but allowing it to unfold naturally through presence, breath, and repetition. You'll learn how to engage your body, recalibrate your nervous system, and gently rewire the patterns that keep you locked in resistance. A 3-step technique to practice energetic surrender. Letting go isn't just a mental decision, it's an embodied experience. And like any experience rooted in energy, it begins where words end, in the quiet intelligence of the body. This process isn't about fixing, it's about listening, not commanding your emotions to leave, but creating space for them to dissolve. Here's the process. Step 1, locate the tension, not just the thought, not just the feeling, the actual spot in your body where the resistance lives. Maybe it's a tightness in your throat when you're afraid to speak, a knot in your stomach when you think about the future, a weight on your chest when you remember what you lost. Let yourself feel it, not to analyze it, but to acknowledge it. There you are. That simple presence begins the shift. Step 2, breathe into the resistance, not to force it away, but to offer it rhythm. When you inhale, imagine surrounding the tension with warmth. When you exhale, imagine creating space. You don't have to change the breath, just meet it. Let it soften the edges. As you breathe, the nervous system begins to interpret the moment differently, not as threat, but as allowance, and that changes everything. Step 3, repeat a phrase that rewires the pattern, not just with your voice, with your presence. A phrase like, "It's safe to release," or "I am held even when I let go," or "This is not danger, this is recalibration." The exact words don't matter as much as the vibration behind them. Say it slowly. Let it ripple through the space where tension once lived, and notice, even if just for a moment, how your body responds. This process may seem simple, but neurologically, it's profound. Every repetition begins to form a new neural pathway. You're teaching your brain that surrender is safe, that softness doesn't mean collapse, that you can relax into the unknown without being destroyed by it. Coherence between the brain and the heart is essential here. Studies show that when we engage in slow, intentional breathing, especially when we pair it with a conscious phrase, we activate gamma waves and increase heart rate variability. That's not just a scientific detail. That's a gateway to emotional freedom. Let me give you a symbol. Picture a snow globe. When you're resisting, the flakes are frantic, chaotic. You can't see clearly. But when you stop shaking it, when you let it be still, the particles begin to settle. That's your energy field on surrender. Still, clear, receptive. This isn't about doing it perfectly. It's about doing it honestly. One breath at a time, one release at a time. Until your body starts to trust what your soul already knows. You were never meant to carry it all. Next, we'll open a portal through time, back into the wisdom of ancient texts. We'll draw from the Vedas, the Gnostic Gospels, and forgotten writings from the desert to uncover how surrender has always been the path. Long before we had language for trauma, nervous systems, or vibration, you'll see that letting go isn't a new idea. It's an ancient invitation. What ancient texts say about letting go? Long before we had neuroscience, long before the language of trauma or quantum fields, there was surrender, whispered in ancient chants, written into sacred verses, carved into the silence between lines of forgotten scrolls. Letting go wasn't just recommended, it was revered. Because they understood something we're only beginning to remember, that true power flows through emptiness. In the Vedic tradition, there's a concept called Ishvara Pranidhana, the conscious offering of oneself to the divine intelligence. It's not passive, it's a radical act of alignment. Not I give up, but I give in to something greater than my control. The yogis didn't see this as weakness, they saw it as mastery, because to let go of your agenda is to step into sacred flow. The Gnostic Gospels, those mystical texts buried for centuries in the sands of Nag Hammadi, speak of a kingdom that only reveals itself when the self becomes empty. When you make the two one, the Gospel of Thomas says, and the inner as the outer, then you will enter the kingdom. The message is clear. Only when the fragmented parts of you stop resisting each other can the divine emerge. Unity through surrender. Even the early mystics of the desert, the ones who walked into silence to meet the divine, taught that surrender was not the end of the road, it was the road. They spoke of a sacred forgetting, letting go of one's name, one's story, one's wounds, not to lose identity, but to find what lies beneath it, a deeper self, a clearer signal. But what makes this ancient wisdom so powerful is that it mirrors something in you. You felt it before, maybe in a moment of heartbreak, when you finally stopped pretending to be okay, or in nature, under a sky so vast you couldn't help but release control. In that moment, something opened, something softened. That was surrender. These teachings weren't about religion, they were about resonance. They were reminders that the soul doesn't operate on pressure. It remembers through presence. And here's the bridge. The ancients may have called it the divine, but today we see it reflected in energy fields, brainwaves, and bioresonance. The language has changed, the truth has not. Let me offer a modern image. Think of a musician playing a violin. If the strings are too tight, they snap. If too loose, they don't play. Surrender is the perfect tension, the space between control and collapse. That's where the music lives. You were never meant to struggle forever. Your soul didn't come here to fight every day just to survive. It came to remember. And what it's remembering is this: let go and know. In the next chapter, we'll bring this knowing to life through story. You'll meet someone who lost everything and found something deeper than they ever imagined. A rebirth not born of victory, but of release. Their journey will remind you of your own. The soul remembers flow, a story of vibrational rebirth. She thought she had reached the end. Divorce. Financial collapse. Her career gone. Her identity shattered. There was a moment, she told me, when she stood in her living room surrounded by boxes of what used to be her life, and all she could do was exhale. Not cry, not scream, just exhale. I lost everything, she said, and then I found peace. Not because she fixed it, not because things got better right away, but because in that moment, when there was nothing left to hold on to, she stopped resisting. And something ancient, something forgotten, began to rise within her, not from effort, from surrender. She stopped fighting what was, stopped chasing the next step, stopped performing strength. And in the stillness, a new rhythm began. One she didn't have to control. A job came, one that aligned with her heart. Old friends returned. Her body began to heal in ways no treatment had managed before. But she said the real miracle wasn't what happened outside. It was what happened inside. She remembered how to flow, and that's the message beneath her story, and maybe yours too, that the soul never forgets its rhythm. It just gets buried under survival, under fear, under stories we tell ourselves about how hard it has to be. But what if it doesn't? What if your next breakthrough won't come from trying harder, but from softening deeper? Letting go is not losing, it's remembering that you are part of a current. That life doesn't need your micromanagement, it needs your presence. That your soul wasn't meant to carry everything, it was meant to move with everything. Take a moment, breathe. Let that truth settle in your chest. You don't have to keep resisting. You don't have to hold everything alone. Before we move into the final message of this journey, I want to pause and thank you. If you're still here, you've walked with us through depth, through story, through vibration. That matters. You matter. And I'd love to know, has there been a moment in your life when surrender changed everything? If it feels right, share it in the comments. Not just for us, but for those who may be reading, silently hoping they're not alone. Surrender is a frequency shift, not a defeat. Want to stop struggling? Try letting go, not as an escape, not as weakness, as a return to yourself, to truth, to the frequency of peace that was always waiting underneath the noise. You see, surrender isn't passive. It's not giving up on the life you want. It's finally aligning with the way it actually flows. It's remembering that there is a wisdom greater than your plans, and that wisdom lives in you. The world taught you that control is strength, that only the ones who grip tightly are safe. But your soul knows another story, the one where freedom begins the moment you exhale, the moment you stop fighting to be enough and start living as if you already are. And you are. You don't have to earn your peace. You don't have to prove your worth through effort. You don't have to keep holding on to what's hurting you just because it feels familiar. Letting go is a vibrational shift, one that tells your nervous system, we are safe now. One that tells your inner child, you don't have to carry this alone anymore. One that tells the universe, I'm ready to trust. If this message found you today, it's not by accident. Maybe you've been holding on for too long. Maybe the weight you've been carrying isn't yours anymore. Or maybe, just maybe, you're finally ready to feel the ground beneath you without needing to control the sky. So take one more breath. Let it go. Let it all go. The path will carry you. Thank you for being here. Thank you for your energy, your presence, your willingness to journey into this space with us. If you've made it this far, you're not just watching a video, you're walking a path, and we're walking it with you. If this resonated with something inside you, let us know in the comments. We'd love to feel your energy, your voice, your truth. And if you feel the call, like this video, subscribe and stay close. This is only the beginning. There's so much more ahead. You are not at the mercy of the outer world. You are the field that transforms what vibrates around you. We'll see you in the next video, right here at Echoes of the Path, where your soul remembers and your energy begins to move.